Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Hello,
Mister.
Mr. Hello, Mr. Abdurrahman.
Hello, Mr. Mahmoud. Hello, Miss Yasmin. If you
Hello,
please
Mister.
tell your names on the
Uh,
chat box for that 10 minutes.
بتصوير نور.
Miss Salma, if you please mute yourself. Miss Munira, mute yourself. Today is our ninth session in our e-tag in Omrania Directorate. Welcome to all. So let's start our session with this simple introduction.
Hello, English teachers. Are you ready for our e-tag today? Yes, we are ready, Mr. Abdel Rahman Rashid. Today we will learn and practice two new topics which make your teaching process more engaging, attractive and motivating. We are eager to start. So, let's start.
So today we'll have two topics as usual. Let's see what are our topics for today.
English teachers. Today is our ninth e-tag. Today we will have two topics. First, understanding thinking skills. Second, practice activities. I wish you all the best of luck. Mr. Abdul Rahman Rashid.
That's all we have got two topics. The first one is understanding thinking skills. We have already spoken about thinking skills in the previous session. Now we'll go deep into understanding more items related to thinking skills in our first part of this session. The second part will be about practice some activities that I wish you will enjoy. So let's see what will be our session today. First, we'll have understanding thinking skill, then practice activities. After that, we'll have our next task for the 10th session. It will be answering page 111. Now let's start with the first part of this session. It's understanding thinking skills. The aim of this module is to identify and define thinking skills. We have already spoken about thinking skills before. It looks at the importance of developing thinking skills, how to develop your thinking skills and use some of higher and lower thinking skills throughout your lesson or teaching. We have already spoken about Bloom's taxonomy the previous time, as well as how to categorize. Categorizes is the main core of our first part for this training today. God willing. Right? As well as how to categorize and apply thinking skills in the classroom by developing questioning skills. So by the end of this module, you will be able to categorize thinking skills and select questions that could be used to promote them. Number two, apply thinking skills in a discussion about a problematic teaching situation. So we'll have a kind of short video about a very famous story, and we will have after that a small discussion. So we will be divided into two groups in our rooms and discuss the issue of this story together. Now let's start with this simple story about the lion and the mouse. I think most of you are aware of this story. But if you please try to concentrate on the main course of this story, because we'll have a small discussion related to it.
The Lion and the Mouse. We all know the lion is the king of the jungle. Once, a lion was fast asleep when a little mouse ran up and down on him. This awakened the lion. He was angry and caught the mouse with his huge paw. He opened his big mouth to swallow him. Please forgive me, O King of Jungle, cried the little mouse. I shall never forget your kindness. I may be small, but who knows? Someday I may turn out to be some kind of help to you. The lion laughed and took pity and set the mouse free. 2 days later, the lion got caught in the hunter's net. He roared, but in vain. Little Mouse heard and ran towards the lion. Immediately, the mouse started cutting the net with its tiny teeth. So, the lion was free and thanked the little mouse. Thereafter, they became friends. Moral: a friend in need is a friend indeed.
So according this story, the moral is a friend in need, a friend indeed. So let's start our first part, a discussion. We will categorize thinking skills according to two kinds of sorting. The first one is text A. It's about Bloom's taxonomy. One way to categorize thinking skills comes from Bloom's taxonomy. The taxonomy of dividing the skills into two main parts, lower skills and higher skills. In each skill, we have three main steps we have already spoken about. Let's remember them. The lower skills were remembering, understanding, and applying, and the higher skills were analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So, according to what we have already seen in this story, would like to ask you some questions. If you want to answer, please raise your hand and take the audio and speak about your opinion. The first question is related to remembering. What happened in the story? So, do you remember what happened in the story? You can answer this simple question. This is the first simple thinking skill. Who can answer? If you want to answer, please raise your hand. Mr. Mahmoud Samir, your mic is open. Could you remember the events of this story?
Yes, Mr. Abdurrahman.
What are they? Could you summarize some of the events of the story?
The lion had a problem. At first, the mouse made a trouble for the lion. So the lion caught the mouse and wanted to eat it, but the mouse used, I think, creative thinking. Maybe he can help him one day. Can you understand me?
Yes, I am.
Can you hear me, Mr. Abdurrahman?
Yes, I am listening to you, Mr. Mahmoud. Go on, if you please.
After that, the lion had a problem when hunter put the net on it. The mouse helped the lion by cutting the net.
Excellent. And they became close friends after that. Thanks, Mr. Mahmoud.
Close friends. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Mahmoud. So this is the first part of Bloom's taxonomy. It's related to remembering. Now we'll turn to the next part. It's understanding. I want someone else to answer, why did it happen that way? Why did the mouse help the lion? Who could answer this question?
I think the mouse, the lion made a favor for the lion, for the mouse.
Right, so he made a favor, but why did he made a favor for the lion?
Because he left him free.
Right, because the lion didn't eat the mouse when he could do that. He thought about the mouse couldn't help him one day, but he was wrong. Right, thanks, Mr. Mahmoud. Now we'll turn to the third part of Bloom's taxonomy. It's applying. What would you have done if you were the mouse? What would you have done if the lion caught you?
Yes, Mister.
Yes, Miss Yasmin.
I think I would act like the mouse. It
Right,
is the best way.
right. This is creative, Miss Yasmin, because you will save your life by saying some words. This is very creative. But if you were the mouse, would you keep your promise if you have the chance to help the lion?
I think I will keep the promise, but I think I will be afraid.
Right. So you will be afraid, but you will keep your promise as you are supposed. Thanks, Miss Yasmin. Now we'll
Thank you.
thanks, Miss Yasmin. We'll move to the higher thinking skills. It's related to the first part, analyzing. Which part did you like best of this story? Who can share us some ideas about which part? Can I choose someone, or you would raise your hand and answer? Mr. Hani Abdul Azim, would you give us some ideas about which part did you like best of this story? Mr. Hani, can you hear me? Right, let's turn to someone else. Thank you, Mr. Hani. Miss Irini?
Yes, Mister.
Yes, Miss Irini, can you answer this question? Which part of the story did you like best?
Miss Yasmin with you, Mister.
Right, okay, this is Miss Yasmin. So go on, Miss
Uh,
Yasmin.
I think the best part when the lion quoted because he needs the help of the mouse.
Right. So it was the part when the lion discovers that he can't do everything by himself. Right. He needs even the smallest parts or the small things which could help him in critical situations. Thank you, Miss Yasmin. I appreciate it. So
Thank you.
we'll turn to evaluating. What did you think of the story? This is a higher level of thinking. So here is the students or your colleagues will think about what did you think of the story? How do you give it a rank or how do you see it? Right, and why? The last part is creating. Can you think of a different ending? So here is you make your students make their minds to give you some other ends of this story. You can apply this Bloom's taxonomy on many kinds of stories or on many and lot of subjects you give them and the skills you want to give them. Now we'll turn to the second type of categorizing. The first type was according to Bloom's taxonomy, and we have already applied on the story of the lion and the king. Now we'll move to another part. Categorizing thinking skills, the national curriculum for England. This is another way. One way to categorize thinking skills comes from the national curriculum for England. This curriculum suggested the following titles to define thinking skills. So I have got information processing, reasoning, inquiring, creative thinking, and evaluating. So I have got these new definitions. Information processing, which means finding relative information, organizing information, representing or communicating information. It's like Bloom's taxonomy, the first part is like remembering and understanding, applying, and so on. The next level is reasoning, which means giving reasons, making inferences or deductions, arguing or exemplifying a point of view, explaining a point of view. The next is inquiring, questioning, asking questions. Here is a kind of brainstorming, planning research or study, engaging in inquiry or process of finding out. You would like to find out some information related to what you have already seen or taught. The next is creative thinking. Here is a more higher level, generating ideas, to generate, to get with new ideas, imagining or hypothesizing, designing innovative solutions. So you will give another solution like giving the story another ending, evaluating. It's related to developing evaluation criteria. You put a criteria for evaluating and develop them. Applying evaluation criteria, judging the value of information and ideas. Now we'll be divided into groups, two groups, and we'll discuss these questions. If you please write down these questions in a note paper outside, and when you are divided into two groups or two rooms, try to discuss these questions. First question, which do you think is the easiest to work with, the first style of Bloom's taxonomy or the English style? So I will go and monitor your discussion concerning this. Which one do you think is the easiest? Right? For example, I like Bloom's taxonomy because it's very obvious. And we have some words and some verbs we could use in planning our lesson. This is your point of view. You can change it as you like. Question number 2 is, how often do you use thinking skills in your class? This is an open-ended question. You can say whatever you want. Third, are there any that you never use? Why not? So if you don't use any of these, say it with your friends and say why. The last question is, define high and low order thinking. Give one example of each. This is we have already spoken about in the previous training. Now I will divide you into two sections. Have you written these questions on a note of paper?
Yes, mister.
Yes,
So,
mister.
so let's divide you into two rooms. Create. And our first room will be Miss Irini, Miss Noah Hussein, Miss Salma Saeed, and Miss Wala Mutwalli Shirweda. this is in the first room, and then our second room will be Mr. Mahmoud Samir, Ms. Tahani Abdelazim, Miss Yasmin Tunios, and Miss Munira. You will have 4 minutes to discuss these questions. Now I am with you in room 1. If you please try to unmute yourself and speak about Miss Irini, Miss Noah, Miss Wala, Miss Salma.
Yes, Mister.
So we start discussing the 4 question. You can start with reading the question and giving your opinion.
Yeah. Which do you think is the easiest to work with? First question. I think the easiest is Bloom's thinking.
Bloom's taxonomy.
Yes.
I
Yes,
agree
because
totally with you.
it's easy. It's easy to apply.
Right, and you have a lot of verbs which we could use in planning our lessons. Who is there, Miss Wala? Miss Wala, could you give us some?
I can't hear you, Mister.
Yes, Miss Yasmin, because I was in room 1. Now, can you discuss the question
Yeah.
with each other? We have got here Miss Hani, Miss Yasmin, Mr. Mahmoud. Can you discuss?
Already we discussed already.
Right. So, what was the type suit for you, Miss Yasmin?
The easiest way to work with,
Right.
I think the blooms is the easiest and the clear way to work with, especially with youngest pupils in grade 1, 2, 3. I
Right.
use the lower order skills, remembering, understanding, and applying. It's
Right.
my opinion.
Okay. Okay. Miss Tahani, Miss Tahani Abdelazim, could you give us some hints about your opinion? Mr. Mahmoud.
I think Bloom's taxonomy, Mr. Abdurrahman, the simplest thinking skill.
Right. Okay. I see that we are all agree about Bloom's taxonomy. Thanks for you all, and now we'll go back to our session again.
Okay.
Now I have returned to the main session. Can you hear me, all of you, now?
With you,
Yes,
Mr.
we can. Yes.
Yes, Mister.
All right. So let's share the screen. Here is according to the discussion which you had held. I think that the main type would you like to apply is Bloom's taxonomy, because you said that it was more easier and relaxed, and it's suitable for the lower students level of learning, like grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. The tasks related to this part is to apply. It's a study time for primary 2. How would you let them, your students, use their higher order thinking skills as you learned from Bloom's taxonomy after finishing the story? So you will finish the story with your students and apply the higher thinking skills. This is task 1. I have already uploaded task 9 for you on our Google Classroom. You can go and download the task and answer it and re-upload it again. Here is the notice board. This is the new definitions or ideas we have already spoken about. First, he gives us some hints about thinking skills and higher and lower order thinking skills, and finally thinking skills should be blah blah blah. You can read about it in our journal or main book you have already downloaded, and to summarize some of these definitions. Now let's move to the second part because the session is limited due to the time related to Zoom. Want to finish the second part. So in the first part, we have already spoken about thinking skills, and we had a story to apply the two types of thinking skills. Right, now we'll move to understanding practice activity. In this part of our session, we'll have a small activity and we'll apply it. You can use it with your students in the school or your class. Also, I gave you the links for this video, and this video can use it. So, learning outcomes of this part will be by the end of this module, you will be able to identify the skills and all language that different activities practice. Number 2, recognize how some activities are flexible and they can be adapted to different levels and ages. So you can apply these activities from grade 1 to grade 12. Right? Let's move to the next slide. Here is a small video about my identity. Please watch it carefully and we will have a small discussion about it.
My identity. This activity helps a child to understand and express different aspects of his or her identity. It can be played within players of all ages. Activity requires 2 to 6 players. Materials required for this activity are 6 blank cards, chart paper, sellotape, any music on phone, TV, radio, a dice, a timer. If music is unavailable, someone can volunteer to sing, clap, or snap fingers. Now write the following phrases in the blank papers in large fonts. I am, I can, I believe that, I enjoy, I'm learning to. All the different places where I spend my time in a day are. Now how to play this activity. Place the 6 cards on the floor in a circular manner using a sellotape. Number them from 1 to 6. Maintain 1 step distance between the cards. When music starts, all participants start walking in a circle while landing their feet just behind each card. At a time, a participant must have both feet behind the same card. Stop the music randomly. Now, the facilitator rolls the dice. Now let's suppose the dice rolls to 3. When the music stops, all participants have to stop walking. Now as we can see, player A is standing on number 3, corresponding to the number on the rolled dice. And number 3 represents I believe that. Now player A will share one thing that he or she believes in. He or she will use a sentence that starts with the words I believe that, such as I believe that ghosts exist, or I believe that good things come to you when you work hard, or I believe that a good friend shares their toys. When player A is done sharing, the music starts again and round 2 begins. For every unique sharing, a participant gets 1 point. Do not repeat that others have already said. You can keep playing until every participant has had a chance to share about every card at least once. The participant with the highest points wins the activity.
You can modify this activity and use it in the way you like. You can give your students this I can, I believe, I am, and so on, and ask them to write down some sentences related to each of the cards. And when you try to play the game, ask the students to say the card on which he stands over. You can make it more enjoyable by making kind of music and let the student move around the cards. And when they stop the music, they stop by some cards, and you choose even randomly or by asking a question or through the records of the students for attendance and so on, and ask the student to give you some answers from his note and go on. Now let's move to the next part. It's a kind of discussion. I want you only to say which one would you like? One, two, three, four, or five. Now, here working groups, number one, there are some activities that the learners love, so I tend to use them over and over again. We have already in the previous year a lot of activities like information gap, think and when, running dictation, Chinese whisperer, and so on, a lot of activities, right? If you have an activity like bingo, and you see it's very amusing for your children or your students, would you like to repeat it more and more again? This is teacher number one. Teacher number two says some activities are really versatile. For example, find someone who the student gave us some information about himself, and he tries to find someone who has the same information like this student. For example, I like the yellow color, and I will search for students who likes the yellow colors. I like to eat bananas, and I would like to search for students who likes to eat bananas. My favorite subject is science, and so on. This is the second teacher. As for the third teacher, in the textbook we use, every unit tends to use the same activities. There is always a true or false activity, then a matching activity, a dialogue, and a writing task. It's a bit boring. So this teacher sees that the repetition of the same activities is very boring. Are you agree or disagree? So I'll give you a time to decide which one you would like to say, I am this teacher. Number four, I wish I had more activities in my sleep, so I don't have to keep using the same. This teacher didn't have a lot of activities in his mind and didn't apply them. He have some little activities, so he is complaining about lacking of ideas and new activities. The fifth one and the last one says, I don't really think about the merits or shortcomings, that's demerits, of an activity. If the learners are having fun, that's the main. So he says that having fun is the main core, not giving the students new information or give them new ideas. Now, if you are of the first type, could you say I am and say your name?
With you, Mister? Yes, Mister.
Yes. Who's speaking?
Miss Yasmin with you.
So, Miss Yasmin, you are from the first type. When you find a good.
No,
Mhm.
I like the first type, and I agree with the third one.
Agree
I
with.
like the first,
So,
and I agree with the third one.
so you see that the repetitive activities,
Excuse me.
the activities which is true or false,
The same
match,
activities.
dialogue, is very boring.
Yes, yes. It is like the exam exactly. They are boring, but when we use some activities like moving, acting, coloring, singing, it is more suitable for them.
Right, I appreciate it, but I am so sorry that we have only 2 minutes to finish this session, so I will in a quick give you the last two or three slides. Thanks, Miss Yasmin. And if
Thank you.
Some
Yes.
1 seconds, we will return back to this activity. This is task 2. In this task, he asks you which activity would you rather use with primary 2 to teach them the bird's life cycle and why? What is the activity would you give your students? And here you can create your own activities and give us some games you have already made by yourself. Yes, Mr. Mahmoud, you are raising your hand. Go on if you want to.
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
We can use story picture.
Story picture. Right. It's okay.
Story picture.
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmoud. So give us some hints about how you would apply this in this task when you are answering this question from Google Classroom tasks. Thanks, Mr. Mahmoud. Here is the main.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. The main thinking skill activity, which I want you to answer. It's on page 111. This is the last minute. So you will give us a story and try like Cinderella or Little Riding Red Hood or other famous stories and try to modify it to be suitable for the age we live in and give us some hints about how would you apply it in your class and answering the 3 questions by the end of this paper. What thinking skills has the teacher used in this activity? Would it be suitable to apply with your learners and so on? This is the end of our session today. It was very amusing to be with you. I wish you all the best of luck and goodbye till we meet again in the next session. Thanks to you all.